Big Questions with the Dead Milkmen. Hi, I'm Johnny Knoxville, and this is Jackass. Ah! Okay, anyway, it took me forever to think of that trick. Okay, so folks, tonight on Jackass, we are talking about the 2014 album, Pretty Music for Pretty People, which is an album that we made. And we're talking about it tonight instead of going in order because punk rock band, we don't have to go in order. We can go in any order we want. Also, Dan wasn't really getting a chance to chime in. He's more telling us about like where he'd first heard the album. It's like I was in reform school and this album was playing in the cafeteria. And so we just wanted to explain that. Now we have some questions. So here's the format. I'll read off the questions first. So people put questions in last week, and we told them last week, give us questions. So they put them in the comments section. So I'll read those, and then we'll go to Dan, and then we'll go to me and around. Because Dan wasn't getting a chance to really chime in on stuff before. So we'll get his memories of working on this fine album, which is my favorite Dead Milkmen album. Okay, first question comes from Jonathan Douglas. And Jonathan asks, what made you write a song about Marianne Cotton? So first of all, who wrote the music for Marianne Cotton? Does anyone remember who originally started that?
Dean, right? Dean.
Yeah. And I thought the music was pretty. And if you have pretty music, you should have really dark lyrics to it. If you have dark music, put pretty lyrics to it. It's what to do. The song Marianne Cotton, first of all, she was Britain's first serial killer. So why not get a song? Also, she was breaking that glass ceiling for women. And so she was hanged. So I thought, well, that's interesting. Dean's wife had turned me on to a movie called The Young Poisoner's Handbook. So I've always been very interested in poisoning. And also the song, if you listen carefully to the last end, may not be entirely about Marianne Cotton, but about belief systems. So it's the idea that maybe it's about people that sell you poison. So that might be why at the end it says there is no end to what the public will swallow. So there you go. We should go out and just find a murderer, write a song about them, and use it as a euphemism for like religion or whatever. So there you go. So, I'm pretty proud of that. I'm glad somebody asked about it. I had that in there for years and nobody noticed it. All right, here we go. The next question is from Ollie Rules. Well, Ollie, we'll decide if you rule or not. Kind of like Casey Kasem here. Our next letter comes in from Ollie Rules. Ollie asks, what's Mariah Carey been up to lately? So Ollie Rules asks, is that a stylophone on the final solo on All You Need Is Nothing? Who would like to answer that? You don't have to raise your hand. You can actually speak in.
I didn't want to interrupt.
Oh.
Yes, that was a stylophone. Actually, there's the same stylophone as on Sanitary Times too. But yeah, somehow I convinced the guys to let me do that on there. I'm still not sure why you guys agreed to it, but I'm glad you did. I like it.
Songwriters, here's a tip for you.
I love that song, by the way. That's like one of my favorite songs.
Which one's that?
All You Need Is Nothing.
All You Need Is Nothing? Yeah, I was gonna say some songwriters get
format. What? Go ahead.
Format?
No, I'm just saying it's an interesting format, the song. I like it. Like that solo is like a hollow verse or whatever. So we had to do something over it.
And I was going to say, for songwriters, a lot of songwriters, this is something you're just going to have to learn to realize that this is how life is, songwriters. It's like you're a chef and you bake a cake. You bake a really nice bake. The cake is, the inside's good and everything. And then somebody comes along and they put some sprinkles on top.
I thought you were going to say someone comes along and puts their finger in it.
No. It's like everybody comes by and they, oh, look at the sprinkles. And you're like, what about the cake? What about the cake that's holding up the sprinkles? Doesn't that count for anything? If there was no cake, there'd just be some sprinkles on a plate. And that's the thing. A lot of people, I don't have a problem with it, but a lot of my friends who are songwriters go like, yeah, so-and-so came in and played triangle on that. And all anybody ever talks about is the triangle. It's just how it is. We all do that. So don't become bitter unless it's bitter over something really cool, in which case go for it. Okay, so coming up next, this is a question from Stephen French Wood and stuff. Is that French, like Norwegian wood, French wood? I once met a girl. And Joe's cut off at the head again, but you never know. He wants to know, what's the backstory on obtaining the answering machine message used in Make It Witchy? That guy seems really annoyed about not receiving his weekend newspapers. Okay, so first of all, I'm so glad that someone didn't want that recording on there, and I'm glad we kept it. But here's the thing: someone had left it on my answering machine, thinking it was the number, a number I had for a different number, not my home one, for the Inquirer. So I'd come in, and we used to get, like, my phone number is sort of one off from the old Philadelphia Inquirer number, but it's also like one off from a podiatrist. So you get things like, my feet hurt, God damn it. But this guy was really mad because apparently he thought the woman next door had been stealing his newspaper. And a lot of these people who are into the home delivery, they're older. I once got a call because I picked up the phone, and it was a woman who was 102 years old. She, I'm 102. And so I was trying to help her and get her in touch with the Inquirer. That's what I would do. I'd try and put them, but he was really angry. And I just loved the end of that, and we couldn't have made it up. And I think it's perfect for that song where, he just goes, she is a bitch and she hates everybody. I love that guy so much. It's one of I saw that and I thought, boom, this has got to end on something. And it does complement the end of the song really well, which is a song sort of celebrating madness and excess. This is another one I might be able to answer here. This is a PMFPP question. Well, I'm sorry, we're talking about pretty music for pretty people. I don't remember when we made the PMFPP album. This question is, where did the lyrics for Now I Want to Hold Your Dog come from? Okay, so I have a friend named Wild Bill Ferguson, and he is a madman. I've seen him in a restaurant, a crowded restaurant, refer to beef stroganoff as beef stroganoff. When at the menu, go, hey, look, beef stroganoff. So he has a thing when he's really into dogs. And when he sees a dog, it's a good-looking dog, it's sharp-looking hound, sharp-looking hound. So we're out walking his dog in a pretty upscale neighborhood for some reason. I don't know. And his dog was like a regular mutt. And this woman comes by with like this dog. And Wild Bill goes, sharp-looking hound. And the woman was like, started giving him a speech like, this is not a hound. This is a purebred. So first of all, there's something that's always kind of bothered me about the fact that rich people always need to have purebreds. There's kind of something happening under the surface there. But I just thought, I was laughing too, because Bill kept going. He's like, no, it isn't. It's a sharp-looking hound. Let me rough him down. Let me rough him down. He's talking to his dog. He's like, air, rough down that hound. And so this woman's really upset. And I thought, I've got to get back at her some way. So it's basically a song about class structure, obviously. But that woman was the impetus for that song. So I hope wherever she is now, Martha's Vineyard, I don't know. I hope she's having a good day since she inspired that. So I think that's where they came from. Okay, I have a question for the making of pretty music for pretty people. Although he's saying more of an overall question for all albums. I don't know if we can allow it. We'll have to be a ruling. The question is, what is your process for writing, and has your process changed through the years? So let's vote. Who votes that we should allow this question?
Yeah, it's fine.
All right, 2 people want to disallow it. Wait, Joe wants to disallow it. Joe's no. No? Okay, we're going to disallow your question. But it'll be kind of answered when we get to the album, in a way. Sort of. All right, so those are the questions that we got. And I think their lack of death threats, for one, so they were good. All right, so we're going to go to Dan, but first a bit of a prologue. Before this album had come, the album called The King in Yellow, which was filled with good ideas, maybe not executed so well. So we're starting off, and that was in 2008. So we're starting out on this album, I think, all going into it, or at least me, a different perspective, which was like this. I knew The King in Yellow was in trouble when we had a record, like a big release party for it, and we played the songs for it live, and everybody nodded off and wandered into the bar. And then we ended the show with a cover of BNB Nation's Control. And everybody after the show was like, that last song you played, that should be the single. And I was like, I've got to rethink everything. All right, so Dan, if you would like to go and tell us your memories of making this fine album.
I personally like The King in Yellow. I think it was well done. I think we could have put more songs on it, but I believe it was like a year later, we were already working on Dark Clouds Gather Over Middlemarch. And I'm not sure how many songs we had, maybe 4 at the time, when you started talking to Ryan Adams, who...
We don't have to bleep that?
You don't want to talk about this? I mean, I'm just talking about...
No, you know me, I'll talk about anything.
I'm still fascinated by this because his name is the first name on my contact list on my phone, which...
Wait, what?
Just because I never like delete numbers, but like I would always see his name because it's Adams.
Mine is the Coatesville VD clinic.
We had that like insane conversation with him over the phone, and it made no sense. And it sounded like he was just like, "Oh, you guys should put out like an old school like punk sounding record with me." And then we sent him 4 songs and like never heard from him again. Or maybe politely he declined to do anything. But we, we already had a momentum going, and I think we just kind of went from there. I liked putting this album together because we did those like the 4 singles over like a couple period of time. So we were like consistently, like, I guess it was pretty much each year we were in the studio, sometimes twice a year.
2012, 2013, 2014. We did the singles we did 2 singles in 2012, 2 singles in 2013, and then we finished the album in 2014.
Yeah, and then we did stuff like Prisoners Cinema and the Lydia,
the
tattooed lady.
And somewhere in there was also Rebel Mind.
Yeah.
That was the first single, extra song.
Yeah, that was the Seaside.
Seaside. 3-sided single.
But yeah, I really enjoyed it because I feel like there was like a consistency of us being like active with it. I also remember that first single, like for some reason, something may have been wrong with my bass. I don't know, but I used a bass that Brian had at Minor Street. And I always notice when I hear that song, it stands out to me that it sounds like production-wise, the bass sounds like different than any of the other songs. And then we went in and knocked out 6 songs in like a weekend, which was that? Pretty Music, Hipster Beard, Sanitary Times, All You Need Is Nothing, Make It Witchy, and I've got to get my numbers up.
Now, to be fair, we were recording over a meth lab, so that helps keep us going.
Well, the Rocket Cat Cafe used to be there, which supplied us with a lot of coffee. I have great memories. That might be my favorite album too, and most of it is because I just remember really enjoying not only like the songs, but like how we recorded them and like how collaborative we were with like ideas. And Brian's a great engineer. He gives the right kind of like feedback, suggestions and stuff, but lets us get explore and do weird stuff. So yeah, I'll sum it up because I keep rambling.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Dark Clouds Gather Over Middlemarch, because when we had finished, King Yellow, great ideas on it. I didn't think it was production. I thought some of the songs could have been chopped down a little, used an intro, maybe a bridge in here. And so that I was in panic mode. So we were sitting in an airport. I can remember where I began to write Dark Clouds. First of all, Dark Clouds, folks, if you're not familiar, but you probably are, there's a song by Ashbury Heights called Dark Clouds Gather Over Vanity Fair. It's one of my favorite songs. And it's pretty much a song about like this relationship from hell and decadence and all this. And it's a perfect song. And I was listening to it over and over again, thinking, what makes this song good? What makes it, what production-wise, lyric-wise, this is, and so I wanted to do a little nod to it. And when I sat down, we were in an airport and I was just, again, in panic mode. I knew I wanted to pull something out to kind of like set the, sort of set the pace for the new one. And I came up with the guitar riff, and I sat there, I have a laptop, and I'm using FL Studio, which back in this day would have probably been like FL Studio 0.3 or something. And I've got that riff. And I remember I finally, I was thinking about like, okay, now it's got to have dynamics. So that's why it begins with like the drum fill and all that. And let me tell you, people, dynamics are a tough thing to get out of a band where everybody comes in equally. Because just saying to a musician, I need you to lay back for a couple bars, it's a dangerous thing. So I got that done. And I remember I sent Joe. Now, this is where we talk about writing process. This album is where my writing process changed. I used to write demos. I would like, okay, and then somebody will fill this in. Now I try to make my demos as close to whole songs as possible. So you can say, here's my vision for this. So when you go in to the studio, the producer, engineers will have heard sort of your whole vision for it. Now, that said, I remember sending it off to Joe, and now we're going to get the answer to a question. And Joe's question to me was, are you sure you wrote this? And I'm not sure if that was a compliment or not. I don't know if Joe, if you remember it or if it was a compliment or not. I guess it didn't sound like something I'd written, but
I'm sure it was a compliment. I don't remember saying that, but
yeah. And well, I would say whatever you're in doubt, you need inspiration. I still do this day, go to a club. So that I wanted everything I contributed to the album to be grounded in realism, to be, have a sort of, it was either based on a historical figure or a historical thing that happened, and I wrote all this down. I made like a little manifesto, or it would be kind of gritty. And that song is very gritty, and it's about a young lady. When my wife quit smoking and we would go out, she would look at the people who were still smoking, who would have to go outside of the club to smoke, and they'd be out there in the cold and stuff. And that's where I began to get the inspiration for that. And then at the end of the song, the woman gets killed off, and I didn't want to kill her off because I really liked her. And I was having a conversation with my wife, and because she'd heard my original version, and she was like, "I thought they found her body in the Thames." And I'm like, "Yeah, I didn't want to kill her because we killed so many people on the King of Yellow. We were like mowing people down on that album. That was like a Sam Peckinpah movie." And I was like, and Vienna's like, "I think she has to die for the song to live." And I'm like, okay, good enough. So yeah, that's what I kind of remember about that. Also, if we'll put up the links, but there are videos of us pretty much making everything on here. In fact, at one point, I think it was this one when we were in the studio, and I was actually at one point, because there was like a live chat going on that was streaming out. I don't know if it was this or during the when we were working on the Prisoner Cinema or something.
Prisoner.
Yeah, I remember playing the keyboards with one hand and like chatting with the folks who are online with the other. I thought, I wonder if anybody's ever done this. Take that, Rick Wakeman. So yeah, we'll probably jump from song to song and talk about stuff. But my theory going into it was I just want to explain the album title, you folks. Again, I solve writing problems by going to clubs, and I've been out at a club, and friends of mine and I were just complaining about, and this is 2014, and it just kept getting worse, where music was going, like pop punk and alt stuff, and stuff that we've been stripped of any sense of like anger or angst or fear or anything, and just how awful it was. And we were just saying, this is the future of music. Let's try to stop it. And one of my friends, and he doesn't remember saying it, said, "Yeah, I call that stuff pretty music for pretty people." And the light bulb went off. So the last song I contributed to the album wound up sort of being the title song. And it is, this time in 2014 is when that whole "let people like stuff" movement happened, which is one of the most insidious philosophical movements in history. I'm being absolutely serious. It's if I owned a record company and my record company made shit, I would be telling people, let people like stuff, because then you can't criticize the shit. And that's the problem. Taylor Swift is not, Fugazi. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not even a huge Fugazi fan. Certain things are not equal. Adam Sandler's, I forget, the film where he's twins of Jack and Jill. That's not Citizen Kane. You should be allowed to say that. And this movement basically came along, and it was helped by the whole poptimism movement and Carl Wilson's shitty book, when we talk about love or whatever, just basically saying, no, you can't criticize this stuff. And if you're allowed to like stuff, then I should be allowed to like stepping in and saying, no, this is not right. The resources are not evenly divided. And if you're spending your money on happy, plucky music, you're not spending your money on music that makes you think. and that's a problem. So yeah, that's where my deep hatred of pop punk, which is a term I consider an oxymoron, came from, and that's why that opening song is so angry. All right, who's next? Who's next on the bill? We're skipping Dan.
All
Who
right.
usually? No, Joe would be next, I think.
I'll go next. My memory is that we, like Rodney said, Rodney made a folder called Servant Girl Annihilator
Later, yes.
on Dropbox, and I considered that the working title of whatever we were doing. But we got a notice that Ryan Adams wanted to talk to us about something, so we all got together at Dean's house, and we had a conference call on a speakerphone, and it was he wanted to do a series of singles with us, but make like Dan, exactly like Dan said, on his label, but he wanted it to be a return to form. He wanted us to get the big lizard in my backyard producer to produce it. And
Okay,
so
wait, I'm going to need more wine, honey. Open the wine cellar.
we sent him we sent him the first 3 or 4 songs that we had, right? And never heard back from him. So, but we ran with this idea of doing an album, releasing an album, a single at a time. But we also added, like Dan said, a C side, a third side. We did an A side, a B side on vinyl, which we were the record company. We called it Quid Ergo, and it was a lot of extra work for us too to do that, because we hadn't pressed things before. Well, we pressed a CD for The King in Yellow, and we made the third song be an MP3 only download. And I personally made on my own printer, all the download cards. It took a lot longer than I thought it would when I did it.
Remember for Big Words made the baby Jesus cry when we stamped everything?
Yeah, everybody came over to my house,
yeah.
and we made the covers for all the singles.
We did
You're
the
drinking
covers.
through the
Yeah.
latte tea.
It was a lot. To me, it was a lot of fun, but it was time consuming. It was a lot of fun. It was something I've always wanted to do, and we did it. But it turned out Ryan's was Ryan was the impetus for the idea, and we just ran with it. Since he never got back to us, we just did it.
Well, funny story.
Funny story.
Telling for the first time here. I'm laughing my ass off. First of all, he did go on to not hire. What do we call that when we sign one of my least favorite punk rock bands of all time, fronted by a human being who has caused a lot of misery in people's lives that I know. So I was like, okay, kind of glad we're on board. Here's what happened. And I'll go find the song and I'll include it in the riff so you can hear the song that killed this deal. He'd sent me an email saying like he wanted to get back to, the same thing Joe said. And I said, well, I'm not really. I said, I'd like it to be more energetic. And I'm like, something like this. And I sent him Deathproof's remix of Angelspit's Channel Hell, and which is a great remix. It's a great song, and it does take a little jab at the record industry too. And I got back this really angry letter about like this, I think he called it cyberpunk, or he was not happy with it. And I'm like, you're not seeing the punk. You're not seeing. I tried to explain it to him. This is a punk song. It's just but by that point, yeah, it was over.
Well, yeah.
What are you going to do?
It would never have worked out anyway. So I'm glad it worked.
I know.
I think he just has ADHD and got bored of it.
We're going to get sued.
So,
He's going to have to get in line to find all those people suing us.
Yeah, so we did 4 singles, 2 each year, with the third sides that aren't on the vinyl. And we rehearsed them we picked the 3 songs that we had a lot of songs we were working on all at once. And as far as the process goes, it was like anybody puts anything they want that they're working on in that Dropbox folder, Servant Girl Annihilator folder. And anybody who wants to do something with it can, and put a follow-up. And Rodney called them POCs, or proof of concept. So I just started doing that, add proof of concept to instead of calling them demos.
Yeah, because they weren't demos. Like a demo was
and
here. It's like a sketch of an idea. A lot of these were fully formed ideas. Also, folks, if you're wondering what Servant Girl Annihilator is, this fit with my mental theme of the thing. The Servant Girl Annihilator was a person in Austin, Texas, in the early 1900s who was killing maids. And Austin, Texas, erected large towers with lights. And and now it's just filled with nepo babies. I don't know what happened to that town. All right, Dean, you want to jump in and save us?
Well, I have a question about, Dan mentioned a song, and I wonder on our new album, there's a song that Rodney suggested Joe write a song about astral projection. Now on Pretty Music, do I remember correctly that you talked to Joe about the song Sanitary Times and said, will you write a song about this?
He didn't tell me to write a song about it, but he told me Rodney told me about this thing, and I guess I don't know where he's.
Rodney's the fount of amazing.
I've seen it as most things. I read a lot of Atlas Obscura.
Atlas Obscura.
And if something goes in here, it doesn't tend to ever come out again.
Sanitary Times. It comes from, I think, the name of.
There was a newsletter that the people who wanted to bronze the bodies or were interested in
from the late 1800s. There's a whole movement of sanitation back then, as you can imagine, because cities, it was industrial times.
Filth, I tell you.
So they thought people, when they're dead, they could make statues of them, bronze them, and then you could have them to remember. And I thought this was the craziest idea. I looked it up to make sure Rodney wasn't pulling my leg, and it was real. So
you would never do that.
I already had the music to it written, but I didn't have any lyrics. And over the weekend, that next weekend, I said, this will be the lyrics, and I came up with Sanitary Times that way.
Yeah, Joe and I were waiting for the what used to be the R5, but we were waiting for the train. We'd been out of practice. We were out at practice, not out of practice. And we were waiting to take the train home. And Joe was like, I got the song, but I'm having trouble coming up with an idea for it. And I immediately said, that was like the thing I'd read that day. I said, hey, Joe, did you know they used to want to bronze people? And he was like, I can work with that. I'm like, it was the shortest case of writer's block in history.
So yeah, I remember that. And then and also I enjoyed recording it at one of my favorite studios here in Philly, Minor Street, which sadly is probably going to go away in the next year or two because their lease is over. But yeah, working with Brian McTeer and his partner Amy Morrissey was fantastic. And there's two great videos for this album people made. Ronald Reagan Killed the Black Dahlia has a great video, and The Sun Turns on Patio into Lifeless Hell is an amazing video.
That guy did a great job with that, because I contacted him. I said I wanted to look like these, old, like Dr. Caligari. Not impressionist.
German expressionism.
German expressionist. Thank you. And he was like, I don't think I've ever seen this. I'm like, oh boy. And then he ran with it. I am very happy with that. And Amy used to get a kick out of it because her and Brian didn't have cable. So she'd seen the Sundowner adjustable awning.
You can also, I'll post a link to my take on the song, I Want to Hold Your Dog. I had fun making that video back then. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great collection of songs. There's a lot of good songs on it. We still play a bunch of them live. So yeah, I have fond memories of this album.
Yeah, it doesn't have the highs and lows of some albums. It's even, and that's the thing. You can put it on, and it's like an even listening experience.
I'll say this: the CD is good for that
album.
I'm a little disappointed in the album because the LP leaves out all of the singles, so the running order is a little I don't know if I like that.
I mean, it was a special release because it was just what the B-sides and the C-songs.
But it's vinyl, man. It's warmer and more authentic. Who cares? Nobody's ever going to play that stuff. Most people don't even own record players. It goes up on a wall somewhere. It's in a garage next to a stop sign they stole.
We should do it.
It was a great idea to be like going in the studio as often as we were to make it, because it does have this kind of like nice flow to it, even though we recorded it at different times. Like, it was because we didn't have like a gap, there wasn't like a gap or year or two. We just kind of like we're consistently doing. Maybe we should continue like that.
It has a glow to it because we had it pressed at 3 Mile Island. Guys, actually, I want a quick thing. There's a this song, the Great Boston Molasses Flood. There was a radio or a podcast that did music and disasters, and they talked about that, but they hated us so much they wouldn't play the song, and I was kind of happy about that. Okay, so wait, before we move on to recommendations, my recommendations, my mind. I want to just say quickly, because we talked a little bit about the Angelspit song Channel Hell and how it kind of killed everything for Ryan Adams' relationship with us. Just to be the cheeky little bastard I am, if you listen to the intro to Anthropology Days and you listen to Channel Hell or even Toxic Girl, yeah, it's a clear lift from Angelspit. I made a little glitchy thing just because I kind of do, and then I could kind of chuckle at that later on. So, all right, before we move on to recommendations, does anybody have anything they want to add about any of the songs or the album or anything?
Well, I was a little disappointed that we couldn't put the Little Rebel Mine on the album, but it was a cover song, and I guess we were unable to figure out how to get the right.
Yeah, that's another thing where
like,
our manager kept contacting Rome the rapper, not Jerome Reuter. This poor rapper singing home in Michigan going, "What the hell is that?" No, but then Jerome Reuter later said that some nice things about Morrissey, and I'm like, oh, I'm done, I'm out. Oh, and not just like we shouldn't be concerned about Morrissey's prejudices. And I'm like, oh, I'm done. I'll skip the next album. That's the whole problem with martial folk. You know what I'm saying? There's people all eventually turn into Death in June. Okay. All right. Anything else anybody wants to discuss on this?
I just wanted to mention, I looked it up on Wikipedia, and apparently the album came out October 7th, 2014. Now that just, incidentally, that is 20 years to the day you guys played your last show with Dave at the Truck. Or was that weekend? 7th and the 8th, I think.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Thought that was interesting.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. I didn't either.
I saw the date and I thought that is significant, but then I don't know. I'm too busy with the usual.
I do weird things with dates. I don't know.
I do weird things with prunes.
And I'm not talking about Bill Cosby. So
tune in next week on Jackass. I'm obsessed with Jackass. The American Hysteria podcast. Last several episodes have just been this woman and her guests talking about how much they love Jackass, and so I started rewatching some of the old things. I'm like, holy shit, this is a great show.
I love what they do with the rental car when.
The rental car demolition derby is great, but also I thought you were going to say with the little toy car.
What, did he swallow it or something?
No, the other end. It's the crowning piece on the second Jackass movie. We're all over the place.
Let's get to recommendations.
Yeah, let's get to recommendations. All right, I'm going to give you I'll give you 3 recommendations and then a little public service announcement. I hope you folks don't mind. First recommendation is a movie called Brooklyn 45 that you can watch if you have Shudder. You may be able to see it on AMC. It's fantastic. It's basically almost like a thriller with a supernatural element to it. It takes place right after World War II ends, where a bunch of people who've been in military intelligence meet in a brownstone in Brooklyn to have a seance. And it's fantastic. The acting is great. Writing is great through everything. You'll love it if you see it. You'll be blown away. And it's got Larry Fessenden in it. Larry Fessenden is the Swiss Army knife of horror movies. You never know where he'll turn up or what he'll be doing. Sometimes he's a voice on a radio in the horror movie. There's a horror movie where he spends the whole time as like a body at the bottom of a flight of stairs. So it's really good to see him in sort of a commanding lead role. He is a great actor and a great actor, writer. He does everything. So I'm really happy to see him out there and more people talking about Larry. Up next, as you might be able to tell from my hat, I went to see IAMX this weekend. And we have actually about 10 seconds, about all we can show legally right now, of IAMX playing probably my favorite IAMX song. So let's have that. And we're back. So yeah, that was an amazing show. I'm like most people, I'm a huge IAMX fan, so I wasn't going to miss this. So if you get a chance, go see IAMX live. Fantastic. But also, there's something going on with Chris Corner. I'm not quite sure what's happening. There's what should be banter on the show during the show, but it's Chris often talking into his mic and then adjusting, doing the weird filters that he does, and having a conversation, maybe with himself, maybe with God. At one point, a guy a few feet away from me said, "I thought I'd never say this at an IMX show, but this is getting weird." But it was a really good show. There are a lot of deep cuts, but I mean, this is I would recommend it more for hardcore IMX fans. But most people love IMX, so you can go to that. Also, up next over on my channel, there is a cover of TVC 15. I've been putting up covers. This is a cover from 2014 that me and two of my friends did under the name Banshee Chapter. I kind of forgotten about it until my one friend reminded me of it. And I thought, well, this fits perfectly with my Re-Blitzed project because they played a lot of Bowie at the Blitz Club. Meanwhile, this song has become oddly popular in South America. I don't know why. Look at the numbers and shake your head as I did. And then this is a bit of a public service announcement. Folks, this Sunday is Father's Day. And I lost my father in April. And if you're like me and you're going to be a little depressed this Sunday, Father's Day, there is a place you can go for help. And that place is called Fort Pedro at south of the border in Hamer, South Carolina. They've got M80s, cherry bombs, all sorts of sketchy explosives, stuff with names like Whistling Mothers, Johnny Reb. My father would take us there every year, and he would load up the camper with all these fireworks, so it was like a rolling bomb. And I recommend maybe not if you're not Caucasian, don't do this. You might get pulled over. But yeah, my father would take us to museums and to like science museums and art museums, but he also took us to Fort Pedro and instilled a love of fireworks in me that exists, and my sisters that exists to this day. His backyard fireworks shows were better than Burning Man. So please, folks, if you can, this weekend, just a little nod to my late father. Swing on down if you live near South Carolina. If not, fireworks are always available across the border. So if you live in North Dakota, you go to South Dakota. If you live in South Dakota, you go to North Dakota. It's just how it works. But swing on down to Fort Pedro in south of the border. Yes, the signs are problematic, but that's the least problematic thing about south of the border. And it does turn out that the man who started the place was a Jewish gentleman who actually hired a lot of African Americans and fought the Klan. So it may not be as problematic as we think. And every employee at south of the border is called Pedro. All right, doesn't quite dig him out of the hole, but it helps. All right, who's up next?
It always a stop we always had to stop when we were talking.
God, I love it. You never made the mistake of eating there, did you?
Yeah, I think I probably did.
Oh, I ate a chili dog there once, and I still have diarrhea. I was like 10 years old. This is like a half a century ago. We once stayed in a hotel, and I found somebody had left like out on a counter somewhere. They tried to stay south of the border, and they left before Yelp used to leave these cards where you would write, and it was just like our room was very dirty and filled with bugs. They've been there, and I guess left there and went to a nicer hotel. So yeah, that is a definite stop. That is. Yeah, I wish that place a lot of luck.
I have one recommendation. It's an album that came out not too long ago called Jarak Qaribak. Jarak Qaribak. I don't know if I'm saying it right. It's in Arabic. Oh. But it's by Dudu, Tassa and Jonny Greenwood. And I was interested in it because Jonny Greenwood, he's a guitar player, and I like him. He's a guitar player from Radiohead. And it's all the singing is in Arabic. I have no idea what they're singing about. I mean, I don't, but I still like it. I think the music's very beautiful. And I mean, they could be singing let's lynch the homosexuals, but hopefully not. But I don't think
I love it anyway.
I still like it. It's still great. It's from what I read, it's reworkings of traditional Arabic love songs. So, and they do them. Some of them have electronic feel to it. Some of it you could maybe hear as dance music. A lot of it you can hear as dance music, but I like it. It's something that I don't usually wouldn't go out of my way to listen to, but I think this is really cool.
And with that recommendation, Joe ended up on the no-fly list. Hey there, Barack Obama, you listening to that Arab music?
Is it my turn?
Yeah.
Totally.
I would like to recommend covering an injury appropriately. I was putting a bed together for a resident at work, and this was back in like end of January, maybe. Headboard fell and landed on my thumb, and it just kind of like bruised it. You know, it looked like when you hit your hammer on a nail. And that was, 6 months ago, and it's like split, like a quarter of it,
Mm-hmm.
and like it's peeling up. And so like the first time I was like, let me just look, and I was like, maybe I can. Oh no, yeah, I don't want to do that. So I just keep putting bandages on it, and then anytime I wash my hands, I got to put another one on. So just I don't know. I recommend taking care of injuries. And make your bed. It's a great feeling at the end of the day when you look and you're like, oh yeah, I made my bed.
I do a lot of woodworking, so I made several beds. Dan, I have a question for you. When the residents stopped by where you work, did they wear those big eyeballs?
And the hats.
Yeah, the hats.
I would like to recommend a video for a new song by the band The Hives. And the song is called Countdown to Shutdown. Apparently, they have an album, their first in 11 years, coming out this August. The album is titled The Death of Randy Fitzsimmons. I'm not sure what that means or is about. But Rodney, you should check out this video. You and I have both worked in corporate America, and the video is just amazing. You'll just have to watch it and find out what I mean. About a minute into the song, there's a great little transition that's hilarious. It just made me laugh out loud. So check it out.
Cool.
And buy some fireworks. And buy your kids some fireworks. Every time I see somebody walking around with a world's greatest dad hat, you know what I do now? I walk up and I rip it off of them. I say, hey, it's my dad's hat, okay? And you can have it back when you take your kids to Fort Pedro in south of the border.
Did I ever tell you about my sparkler injury?
How did you wait a minute? What? How did you get injured with it? That's
the mildest of fireworks caused a terrible burn on my foot. So I was playing with a sparkler as a kid, right? And you know how they get red hot, and they're just a piece of metal. Well, a piece of metal got red hot, and it fell off the end of the sparkler down into my shoe and burned my foot. I could not get my shoe off fast enough. Ow, it still hurts.
Oh my God, I'm feeling that pain right now.
A sparkler.
That's like getting injured by those snakes, those things that you light and that's like such a, I just say, if anybody asks, tell them it was an M80.
I think
it's an M80 or a whistling mother.
Those things are, I have a picture from a few years ago of all three of my kids on July 4th in some way or another burn their hands on sparklers.
Everybody always picks it up by the wrong end, and that's why cherry bombs are safer. You ever see pick a cherry bomb up? Maybe Johnny Knoxville. I don't know.
Where did Johnny put his last cherry bomb?
There you go. That's why there's songs. It's weird because it's weird. There are songs like Cherry Bomb and stuff like that, but nothing really celebrating the sparkler.
Joe, I think Rodney's challenging you to write a song about sparklers for a forthcoming album.